Welcome to Discovering. Tonight I have a story from a few years ago that I wanted to share, netting and pickling suckers. Plus, I have a new story with a familiar face to the show, Dean Juntunen, who completed his goal of circumnavigating Lake Superior.
To my knowledge, I'm the first paraplegic to have paddled all of Lake Superior.
So sit back and relax. It's Monday night and it's time for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone, forests thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak, surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields, call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Oh, nice! Left! Over the past 5 years, I've filmed a lot of different fishing trips, catching almost every species of fish that we have here in the UP. But on this particular day, following this family netting fish that few people want to catch was by far the most entertaining. Suckers are among the first fish to attract attention in the spring as they begin their run to spawn over gravel river bottoms. The spawn lasts about a week. Suckers are fair game all year with no limits.
Usually about 2 weeks after the ice off, the lake will get it. I'm not sure what the water temperature is, but usually the walleyes spawn and then the suckers are up the river very shortly after.
Suckers can be found in virtually all the state's rivers, including most trout streams. And in some places, they can be harvested with dip nets.
That's how we kind of start out with, setting up nets and then driving the suckers to the nets. It's just, we've always done that forever. It works really good. So they say some people spear them. That's legal below the highway bridge on the south side. Same with the netting also, you can't go north of the highway bridge. Because above the highway bridge, it's considered a trout stream.
In the river with Glenn are his kids Glenn Jr. and Marcella, and Glenn's sister Amy. On shore is his wife Rosemary, their youngest son Finley, and Amy's husband Tom. Glenn has been doing this for 34 years, and his kids have been for as long as they can remember.
Yeah, once you start taking Marcella and Glenn Jr. down there, and I kind of got demoted off the nets and got to driving them. A lot more fun handling the net.
Suckers are ugly fish. They get their name from their fleshy lipped mouths located on the underside of their heads. They have a long cylindrical body and a single soft rayed dorsal fin.
Yep, bumps are males. The smooth ones are females.
Really?
Female.
Oh.
Yep.
Female.
We're down a net.
Well, I can use that net. It'll hold one fish.
Just reverse it.
Just reverse it.
Okay, she'll be good for one. In order to catch the fish, you gotta be like the fish.
Now, anglers are firmly divided on suckers as table fare. Suckers have a bad rap as trash fish because of being bottom feeders. Some people swear by them though, especially in spring when their meat is firm. They are typically pickled, smoked, or deep fried. Tonight, we're pickling them.
3 cuts for smoking. Cut that off and I'll cut that up for pickling. You see up in here it's just like regular wild bones, like a northern, but from here back is really full of bones. And here I have 2 quarts of water and 2 cups of salt, which is enough to float an egg, which is kind of standard for any pickled fish recipe. Cut them down the center. Just make bite-sized pieces. So it sits in there for 2 days and then goes in vinegar solution for 2 more days. We started this batch 4 days ago. Now this batch is about 6 pounds of fish, so I did 3 quarts of water and 3 cups of salt. Today is make the brine that will make the pickled fish its finished product. And for that, we will need 3 cups of sugar, but we're gonna use maple sugar that my wife had made. So we need 3 cups of this. Oh, we'll get it close anyways. 6 cups of vinegar. 6. Next we need 1.5 cups of red wine. It says dry port wine. I use any red wine. Next we need 4 sections of lemon squeezed. Put the lemon in there for the boiling process. And then 3 tablespoons of pickling spice. Mix this up and we'll put it on the stove. And then once it starts to boil, we boil it for 5 minutes. You know, after 2 days in the salt brine, took the fish out, rinsed it, put it back in the jug, and then covered it with just straight vinegar. And then it sits 2 days. What that'll do is that'll dissolve any of the bones that are in the fish. So drain off the vinegar. Now we'll pack the jars with some fish and some onions. Never too many onions in pickled fish. And for each quart jar, we'll put in 2 slices of lemon. And just repeat until all our fish are gone. You're supposed to wait 2 weeks. That's a tough battle there. Usually about a week in I start, if I can wait that long. But yeah, they say 2 weeks before they're fully ready. Oh, that's starting to boil. A few more minutes, we'll let that cool off. I'm just gonna set this in some ice water. Get that cooled back down so we don't cook the fish. May produce an undesirable texture. This can also be prepared, you know, a couple hours or so before the packing process, and it should be cooled down enough to pour onto the fish then. We're down to 70 degrees, that'll be cool enough. Just take each jar and fill it up with brine. And then the longer this sits, brine will turn more clear and the wine will actually get absorbed into the fish and turn the fish red, if it lasts that long. And that is pickled sucker.
People find their personal sense of freedom in many places, on the open road, a mountain summit, or deep in a forest. For Dean Juntunen of Mass City, his freedom is found in his kayak.
I took up kayaking in the late 1990s as a paraplegic. I used to do canoeing as an able-bodied person. And I tried canoeing as a paraplegic, but canoes don't have nice backrests and stuff, and then you're up taller and I would be too unstable. So I saw a kayak in the store and I was like, well, I I could use that. That was a very wide, very stable kayak, but not a very fast one, very slow boat because it was so wide. So I basically over the years kept getting narrower kayaks and got as narrow as I could and still be reasonably secure. So I evolved over the years. And now I'm to the point where I call kayaking my religion, or I call it liquid freedom, because I like that feeling when you first sit in a boat, it just feels like freedom.
I had Dean on my very first episode since taking over the Discovering program when he accomplished his lifetime goal of 100 hand cycle marathons. Now he's completed his other lifetime goal.
I actually paddled with Nancy Ushold from Marquette, and she had solo paddled around Lake Superior prior to that. So she was telling me about that, and that's when I got the idea that, you know what, I should paddle around Lake Superior just because it's there, it's always been there, it's just a huge presence near my home, so I got to see it all. She did it in 72 days, long-term camping trips and stuff, and resupply points and all that. But I couldn't do that as a paraplegic, but I figured out a way to do it in day trips.
Dean began his journey to paddle the entire Lake Superior shoreline in 2003.
I finished last year, September 2023. I would have finished earlier, except COVID hit, and they shut down the Canadian border, and that's all I had left was a couple of trips in Canada, and you couldn't do any recreational border crossings for better part of 2 years.
Over the course of 21 years, it took Dean 89 days, paddling anywhere from 4 to 50 miles per day. He did all out and back trips his first year of paddling the UP coastline, but after a year or so, it was apparent that he'd never finish with that short of mileage per day. So he increased the mileage with one-way trips and the help of friends to shuttle him. But there were a couple of trips there was no choice but to camp.
The Pakistan National Park up in the northwest or northeast quadrant of Lake Superior, that's 110 miles between car access points. So I had to figure out how to do kayak camping, and I invented what I call my dune bug so that I would have some mobility on the beaches. It's a little aluminum frame, and Jim Waters carried it on the back of his kayak, and then I carried 2 of the wheels for it in my rear hatch, and Al Koivunen, our third partner, carried 2 of the wheels in his kayak, so we would just assemble it when we got to our camping spot. And the seat in my fiberglass kayak that I was using was a sliding seat, so we could just slide it right out of my kayak and then slide it onto the aluminum frame on my dune bug. And then I used ski poles to push that dune bug around. I also had to do overnight on the Black Bay Peninsula, because that was 68 miles between car access points. So we camped out one night. We paddled 36 miles one day and then 32 miles the second day.
Because Dean has no core muscles, he's had to find ways to adapt his kayaks to meet his needs.
So I'm paralyzed from base of the sternum down, so I don't have any core muscles. So that actually made the kayaking a much bigger deal to paddle that many miles without any core muscles, because you use your core muscles tremendously when you're paddling normally. I have to do it all with shoulders and arms and stuff, but fortunately I'm pretty strong in that respect. Something unique to me, just to increase my stability equation, I carry weights in my sea kayak. So I got like a 25-pound weight that I put in the rear hatch and a 10-pound weight that I put in the front hatch. So my boat actually would right itself, because I don't have any hip control to right the boat under me. If I was tipping over and I was bracing and trying to get back up, I can't really right the boat under me with my hip muscles. So the weights in my boat makes for a lower center of gravity for me, which makes me more stable. And even you as an able-bodied person, if you're paddling a fully loaded boat, your boat is a lot more stable because your center of gravity is lowered. The total distance that I paddled on my Lake Superior circumnavigation was 1,425 miles. It's a big lake. This feature I call the shaft house, because that rock right there looks like one of the old copper mine shaft houses with orange lichens on it.
Dean has seen the entire Superior shoreline, witnessing things that very few people have ever laid eyes on.
And Devil's Island has just, to me, the best sea caves anywhere on Lake Superior. And these are sea caves at Swallow Point on Sand Island. I call this feature the spectacles because I feel like I'm looking out through a pair of spectacles.
Another passion of Dean's is photography, so he has amazing photos to share of his journey.
If you ask me to pick a top 10 favorite paddling places, I could probably come up with a top 10. And it would include places like the tip of the Keweenaw Peninsula. That's about 25 miles if you put in at Copper Harbor and take out at Bay de Gris, or vice versa, depending on the wind forecast. It's kind of got everything. It's got real interesting stuff, including the Montreal Falls just spilling right into Lake Superior there. That's Bear Bluff. And that's about as rough a water as I can handle and still take pictures. If it gets rougher than that, I'm keeping both hands on my paddle so I can brace if needed. And then the Apostle Islands in Wisconsin, just absolutely spectacular. They've got more sea caves than any place on Lake Superior. The tallest sea cliffs on Lake Superior on Old Woman Bay are just, they're so tall that I tried to look up to the top when I was under them and I couldn't even see the top. I would have had to like lean over and tip to and swamp my kayak to see the top of them. They're that tall. Ontario shoreline makes the UP seem warm, soft, flat, and populated, if you can believe that. It's extreme wilderness up there, but some fantastic paddling spots. The Pakasaw National Park, spectacular, and the clear water and the colors of the rocks and stuff under the water. That's one of my favorite things, is looking under the water while you're paddling, because it's a whole different world under there. The Sleeping Giant is the tallest mountain on Lake Superior, and it's about 1,300 feet above lake level. So the lake's at about 600 feet, and it's about 1,300 feet above that, coming right up out of the lake. And we're looking across Thunder Bay at the Sleeping Giant. So this is like your best view you'll ever see of the Sleeping Giant. They say that you know when you're getting old when you've witnessed geological change. And the first time I went to the Grand Portal, we paddled through the Grand Portal. It was all wide open yet at that time. And then it fell down, and now it's all plugged up with rocks. You can't paddle through the Grand Portal anymore. And there's my buddy Al, who is one of my best kayaking partners, in his kayak there in a little sea cave on Autrain Point. And there he is on Grand Island. There's a neat little boat wash.
Dean did not paddle this solo. He had some paddling partners to help him on his journey.
My two primary paddling partners, Jim Waters and Al Koivunen. And Al was the one who did the 50-miler with me. Unfortunately, we did it while we were young and strong, so I don't know if we would do it at this moment in time. We're both well into our 60s.
Gitche Gumi only gives you a couple good paddling months in the year.
Mostly in July and August. June is iffy. You sometimes get decent calm conditions in June, but generally June is more unsettled. And then in September, it starts getting more unsettled. But sometimes you get a real nice day in September. Even had a couple in October and November.
Even in the summer months, the big lake can produce big waves.
You know, Lake Superior, you can't really avoid waves from time to time. And the worst I paddled in was up in Canada, north of Minnesota there. We put in at Little Trout Bay. We had quite a bit of wind and 5-foot waves. Now, when you're sitting in a kayak, you're maybe 3 feet tall and your eyes are probably like 2.5 feet above the water. So if you're in 5-foot waves, all you see is the wave trough gets real long. And when you're down in the bottom, you're just looking at a mountain of water out there because you can't see over the top of it. You can't see anything but a mountain of water in front of you. More than I want to be in, but it turned out that it was doable.
Of all the photos Dean showed me, this one was my favorite, and such a drastic difference to our spring this year.
The year 2014 was interesting to see. I don't ever want to see it again. Winter wouldn't go away. We had 60 inches of snow in April that year. This was on Memorial Day, May 30th that year. And we were paddling in Union Bay, and the icebergs were still 10 feet tall. This was my final day in September of 2023. So Deb took this picture of me and my wife coming in for a landing on my final closure. It was one of my lifetime goals. Very engaging goal. Like I say, I call kayaking my religion because I find it spiritually rejuvenating. So anytime I was out there paddling a new piece of Lake Superior, it's like no better living than that.
If you want to listen to or watch my full interview with Dean, head over to my podcast website, discovertheuppodcast.com, and I'll have that up tomorrow morning. Also, Dean will be doing a presentation of his journey on August 15th for the Ontonagon County Historical Society. Look for details in August on their Facebook page. That's all for tonight, and I hope to see you right back here next week for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.